Welcome to TestRoom, your go-to hub for professional knowledge sharing. In this video, we will walk you through the process of connecting Jenkins with GitHub to streamline CI/CD workflows. When these jobs are orchestrated by Jenkins, the process starts with cloning the codebase from the central shared repository into the Jenkins workspace, which is inside the Jenkins slave machine. This is a primary step as it sets up the environment for building and testing the codebase. In a typical project, developers and testers write and manage their code using version control system like Git. Once the code is tested and finalized, it is integrated into a central shared repository. During this integration process, various automated jobs are triggered. For example, the first job builds the code. If the first job is successful, the next job runs the test. Additional jobs may follow for deployment or other tasks. In this tutorial, we will cover how to create a repository in GitHub, a popular source code management system, and how to create and configure a job to clone the repository content onto a slave machine. GitHub is a well-known web-based platform for version control and collaboration that allows the developers to store, manage, and share their code. It is built on top of Git, and it is a distributed version control system. It also provides additional features to enhance team collaboration, code management, and project tracking. In order to work with GitHub, you need to have an account. You can go to Google and search GitHub create an account. You can open the first link and right click and open this link. Here, in order to create an account, you need to give your email ID, password, and username. If you already have the account, you can skip this step. I already have an account, so I'll try to log in with my account. Once you log in, you can see the dashboard and you can click the icon new to create a new repository. I will create a new repository for this video. I will make it as a public repository and I will give the name as Jenkins Python test. I'll give a description as simple Python code and test to integrate with Jenkins Job. Integrate with Jenkins Job, and I will keep it as a public so that it is available for everyone to clone my repository or work with my repository. They can see my repository. So I can go and create a repository. So once you create a repository, you can basically clone the code into your machine, your local machine, using either via the SSH or via HTTPS. So generally what we do, we will use SSH to clone it, but before we clone via the SSH, you need to do a bit of setup. So let us learn how to set up an SSH key to interact with your local machine and with the GitHub. Before generating an SSH key on your local machine or Jenkins host to clone a Git repository, you must first install Git on Windows. Git is essential for interacting with GitHub repositories and it provides the tools needed to generate and manage SSH. From Google, search Git for Windows. So you can click on this link to download the Git package and you can install the compatible package. So I will always suggest you to install the standalone installer. Either you can download a 32-bit Git or a 64-bit based on your machine configuration. Once the installer is downloaded, you can follow the steps to install the Git on your local machine or on the Jenkins host. After installing Git, navigate to your user directory, typically located at c:users/username. For example, in my case, it is c:users vs Amanullah. Create a folder by name ssh.ssh under this username. So I have already created this folder. I will navigate this this folder. Then I will right click here, then click on this show more options, and then I will try to open the git bash here. This is the git command line tool. And from here, what I can do, I can go to the documentation from GitHub that gives a clear documentation how to generate the SSH key. This is the command to generate the SSH key. If you follow this particular documentation, it clearly says open git bash and then copy and paste this command. Okay, you will have to replace here your actual email. So I will take this command. I will go to git bash. I will paste this command, click enter, and don't type anything, just leave it blank, press enter, leave it blank, press enter, again leave it blank, press enter. This basically will generate the keys under .ssh folder. Let us go to this folder and you can see there are two files that generated. One is a public file and another one is without any extension. And go to the public file and open with a notepad, edit with the notepad. Then you can see the SSH key. SSH key will always, this particular phrase always starts with SSH and ends with your email ID that you provided during the generation. After the generation of the key, you have to go to your GitHub page. I think this is our GitHub page. Then go to your username, under which you have to go to settings. Under the settings, you have SSH and GPG keys. Click on here and then go to SSH and click on new SSH key. Then you will have to give a title as SSH for Jenkins, and then you will have to paste your keys. Okay, this is my key. It clearly says that the format of the key is something like this, SSH, RSA and something like this, and it ends with your the email ID, right? Whatever email ID you provided. I will just paste this and then I will put add SSH key. Now the SSH configuration is complete. Now you can clone your code in the slave machine where you have generated the SSH key. Now let us go back to the repository, that is a new repository that we have created by name Jenkins Python test. Click on SSH here and copy this command to clone the code base. Now currently this code base is empty because we haven't added any files to this particular repository, right? So but what we can do, we can try to clone this. We can go to a folder. Now I have created a folder here to clone the GitHub repository, newly created GitHub repository. In order to clone that, what we have to do, we will close this git bash, go to that folder where you want to clone the code, then right click, bring out the git bash, and copy this command and paste this command here and try enter. So I have missed git clone command, sorry, git clone, then paste the, yes, first time it will ask you to add this host into the known host, GitHub into the known host, give it as yes, then it is added. And you can also see that it is cloned the repository, but the repository seems to be an empty. Okay, this repository is an empty repository. Now let us try to add some code here. I will add this code offline. I will try to add a simple Python test and an unit test to test this particular code. Okay, I will add this offline. For the demo, I have added a very simple Python file in which I have implemented a add number functionality. To verify or to test this functionality, I have also created a test cases using the Python unit test framework. Okay, I can run this using the Python unit test framework command line. So this is the command I am using, python -m unit test with the file name. See, it ran all the 5 test cases and all of them are passed. What I will be doing now is I will be pushing this code into my GitHub repository, and I will be creating a Jenkins job that will clone this repository back into the Jenkins slave and execute the test. Okay, I will be creating a job for that. So I have added this test file under the repository that we cloned from the GitHub, right? I have cloned Jenkins Python test from GitHub. If you go to the GitHub page, this was our repository, right? Jenkins Python test was our repository, and I have added my test code, test Python file under this. What I will do now, I will bring the git bash again. And then I will use some git command to push this code back into my central repository. So what I will do is I will first try the git status command. This will basically tell me that what are the files that are in a untracked state. So this is the file of my interest. So what I will do is I will do git add this file, then I will do a git commit -m. I will give a comment as -m is for comment, my first file for simple Python test. After that I have to do git push origin, or I can directly give git push. This basically pushes the code from my local repository into the centralized GitHub repository. Yeah, now the branch is created. The branch name is main branch. If I go back to my repository and do a refresh here, I can see there is already a file test.py which is added now, right? Which is added. Okay, so this is how basically we can add your code back into the GitHub repository. Okay, let us go to Jenkins and create a job that will clone the Python file from the Git repository, and once the cloning is done, then we will run the test. Now let us log in. Username is test troop and password is you can go to my view. Under my view, click on create job, and for a time being we will create a freestyle project. There are different projects that we can create using Jenkins, like pipeline, multi-branch and things like that. For a time being we will use the simple one, and the name I can give it as simple Python test, then create OK. This is to clone GitHub repo and run test. Then we'll have to give a source code management. We are using Git, and the URL for Git is go to the code, then go to SSH, copy this and give it here. Now it is basically giving you an error. This error is mainly due to the SSH configuration. Now let us go and add that SSH configuration. This can be done using add credentials. Click on Jenkins. It will open up a pop-up. In this, keep this as unchanged. then here you can select SSH username with the private key. So here you have to provide an ID. By default I will provide it as an SSH GitHub because I will be using this credential for all the operation that I do with GitHub. Then description I will put it as for GitHub, and username I will put it as test rope, and then I will have to enter my private key here. Okay, so when we generated an SSH, right, we generated two keys. One is a public key. The public key, that is basically I used that key in the SSH section of GitHub, but private key, that is what we are going to use here. So to get that, I have to go to the folder where I have created a key. When I created a key, it created me the two files. One is public file and another one is a private file. I will go to the private file and I will open with the notepad. Then I will copy paste this key here. Okay, and then I will just add this. I will apply, I will save, and again I will go to configure. Even after configuring the credentials, that is the SSH key, it is again giving a error here, but this time the error is different. It is about the host, that is our GitHub. So it says basically it basically says that std error no ed25519 host key is known for GitHub and you have requested strict checking. So host key verification is failed. So I have researched about this error, and there is an article in Stack Overflow how to overcome this error. And for that, what you need to do, you need to first create an SSH key scan for your the source code repository. That is for that in our case it is the GitHub. What I will do, I will take this command. Now I will come back to the git bash and paste this command, and the host I have to give the host name of my GitHub. That is the URL I need to provide here, and this basically generates a kind of key. I have to copy paste this entire section, and after that it is asking me to go to the configure security. I'll have to go to my Jenkins. I'll save this, and then I go to dashboard. I go to manage Jenkins, then I'll go to security, then I will scroll to the git host key verification configuration. By default it is known host file. Now what I will do is I will manually provide this key, and I will paste this key here, and then I will apply, and then I will save here. Once it is done, again I will come back to my job here, and then I go to configure. Just see that whether this error is gone or not. Yes, so now this is successful. Now you can apply, and then you can save. Now the source code management configuration is complete. Now we will tell the job where to execute. This can be done using this particular item, restrict where this project can be run. Check on this, then you can select the slave where exactly you want your project to run. So we will give it as Windows 11 slave. This is the slave that we configured in our last tutorial. Sorry. Now we will select this, and we will apply, and we will save this. Let us go back to our manage Jenkins. Under the manage Jenkins we have nodes, and if you remember in the last tutorial we have configured the Windows 11 slave, but unfortunately this slave is offline. Now let us try to bring this slave online by using the command, using this particular command. Okay, for this we have to go to the directory d:work Jenkins. This is a directory where we configured our Jenkins workspace. While configuring, we have given this path as a remote directory space, and then we'll go to the command line. We'll go to the folder and bring the command line by typing command, and then we will execute this command. Now the slave is connected, and let us refresh this. If I come to manage Jenkins and nodes, this node is online now. Now we can go and execute our job. Under my view, Python test, let us build this. Now build is getting executed. Is success now. Let us click on this build and let us go to the console output, and you can see here the build is executed remotely on Windows 11 slave. Okay, it is executed on a machine that we configured where the job to be run, and all the data is cloned into D workspace Jenkins workspace, under which it created a folder called workspace. This is a path that we given. If you remember, this is a path that we gave during the configuration of slave as a remote directory, under which is created a new folder called workspace, under which is created another folder by name of the job. The simple Python test is my job name. It is created a folder under which it has cloned all the code from GitHub. Let us go to this folder and see workspace. Under the workspace we have simple Python test, under which we have the file that we have added. So the first step of cloning is done. Now the second step is basically adding a step in our job to execute the command, right? Execute the command that basically triggers the Python unit test. In order to add that step, so we will have to first go to dashboard, under that my views, under that my job, under that configure, and you will have to come down and you will have to add a build step. Okay, add a build step, and inside that we can add the execute Windows batch command. Basically we are executing the Windows command. This is the command, this is the place where you need to add your command. My command is something like this: python -m unit test add.py. and before this you should make sure that the place where your build is running, okay, that is Windows slave machine, you need to check whether the Python is installed or not. So in order to do that, you'll have to come here, you'll have to bring the another command prompt. I'll try to open the command prompt, and then I will check Python ---- version. Yes, I have already installed the Python. If you don't have a Python installed in your slave machine, you need to install a Python first, and then you need to execute the command. So in my case, Python is already installed, so I will not go and install it again, and then I will apply and I will save here. Now I will go and build this. Build is taking some time. The build is completed now. Let us go and see the build logs. Console output. You see it executed the command python -unit test add.py, and it ran 5 tests and the testing is completed. Now I have changed my Python function so that it can generate a test report. You can see here we have 2 commits now. I will go and click on this file. What I have done here is added a code that can generate an JUnit compatible report, and execution also I have modified the way this command to be executed or this test to be executed. And I will also go and change my job. I'll go to configure here, under configure, in the build steps I'll remove python -m unit test. I will directly run my test, and along with that I will also add a post build action. While I run this basically generate an JUnit compatible report. So in order to parse that report and work with that report, I will have to add an post build action. I'll go and add a post build action. Under the post build action, you can see something called publish JUnit test report. In the configuration path, you will have to give a path where to find the test report under the workspace root. I'll just give it as XML by default, and then it is also, I think I have to give it as like this. Yeah, let us keep it like this. And retention, I will give it as all the test, and remaining parameters I don't basically I don't change anything. I'll keep it as by default. I'll apply, then I'll save, and then I'll run my test. Test is getting executed now. Yeah, test is completed now. Now test execution is completed. Let us go inside the console log. Now if you can see here, all the tests are passed. Along with that, it also generated the XML report. And if we can go back on the same hierarchy where you see the console output, you can also see the test result icon, right? So if you click on it, here basically it shows you the overview of the test, like how many test cases that is being executed, total, how many passed and how many failed, and how much time it took to complete execution. So if you go inside, it basically brings which test function or a test class that is being used. If you can go to our source code, in the source code we are using the test class as test add function, right, to call the test cases. That is being shown here. If you again go inside, it basically shows the all the tests that is being added under that particular test class. So if you go inside the code, so we have these many test functions under the test class. So this is what is being displayed in the report. And if you can come back to the job overview, here also you can see the overview of the result. Here it says how many passed and how many failed. If you execute the test again, so this will basically show an aggregated view, because we have configured our post execution has test output retention for all the tests. Okay, so we are basically retaining the test reports, the test outcome for all the tests, right? So we will go back and try to execute this again. So build number 6 is triggered and the execution is complete. If you see here, it has shown us the different graph from the first time. It basically shows the aggregation of your results, right? So if I execute for another time, so this is a build number 5, field number 5, all the test cases are passed. Build number 6, all the test cases are passed. If I execute again, it will also show build number 7. Basically it is aggregating, showing an aggregated view, basically in history of your test. So again, if I refresh this, you can see for build number 7, right? Yeah, this is how basically the JUnit report works. That brings us to the end of this video. In this video, we explored how to create an account and set up a repository on GitHub, establish a secure connection between the local machine or Jenkins slave and GitHub using SSH, pushing the code from the local machine to the GitHub repository, creating and configuring Jenkins jobs to clone the code from the GitHub repository, running the test as part of build process using Jenkins, and displaying the test result by integrating a Jenkins plugin as a post build action in the Jenkins job. I hope you enjoyed learning with me. In case if you find this video useful, please support by subscribing to my channel. Thank you for watching.